Hi everyone, welcome to the tutorial on macronutrients and micronutrients. I think you're going to find this tutorial to be just a little bit quicker than the last one. We're essentially just going to be talking about a couple of types of foods in our diet and where they come from and what they do, and this should be a lot quicker. Of course, the objective here is to explain why the human body needs macronutrients and micronutrients to support homeostasis and the use of energy. Quick term, just to make sure you guys understand this: macro means large, micro means small. Now we're not talking about, you can tell the difference by like rubbing around in your fingers. Okay, these are at the atomic level, at the molecular level. Macronutrients are large molecules, micronutrients are small molecules. They're still too small for us to even see under a microscope. So don't think that this means anything like, apples versus, I don't know, sugar or something. Now, the word nutrient is used wrong a lot. It's you know it, it's a substance that an organism needs for energy, growth, and development. Fats are nutrients, carbohydrates are nutrients, proteins are nutrients. Okay. Anything that provides a nutrient source for you. Yes, although don't get me in trouble with your parents, like going and saying, Mr. Thomas said we can eat this because there's nutrients. A cookie has nutrients in it because it has carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. It also probably to some degree has some vitamins in it. We tend to fortify things lately in this country with vitamins and things like cookies. But just because it says that it's, or just because I'm telling you it's got nutrients in it, doesn't necessarily mean that that's all you should eat, and it doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of it's good for you. A cookie or two here and there isn't going to kill you unless you have, sensitivity towards that. But we need to be looking at places where we get our food sources and what happens when we eat too much of one nutrient and not enough of the other, and too much of one type of nutrient. There are good fats and bad fats, and there are carbohydrates that you can consume that are better for you than others. Okay, and so we need to kind of be thinking about that. Macronutrients provide the body with energy and something to, and ways in which it can build. Okay, you need proteins and fats, and all three of these are used for energy, and all three of these are used to build your body. Primarily, proteins and fats go to build your body, and carbohydrates are used for nutrients, or for energy. But we do have structures in our cell membranes made out of carbohydrates. We do use fats, of course, for energy storage. And we do use proteins for energy as well. So our body is very good at using all three of these macronutrients. And so, how much should you eat? Well, you're asking the wrong guy, because lately I have been putting the pounds on because I got the COVID 20. That's the 20 pounds I've got since I've been home from COVID. But let's take a look at this. Running burns about 560 calories, jogging about 490. I didn't know there was a difference in between running and jogging. Walking is 245 calories, bicycling is 420. And these are estimates for somebody who weighs 155 pounds. If you weigh more, then you will burn more. Like I weigh almost 100 pounds. I weigh 80 pounds more than that. And so if I go running, I'm going to burn more than 560 calories per hour, significant more like 720 or 740 calories per hour. But I'm also not going to be running for an hour unless I'm being chased by something really bad, right? So, but I can see myself bicycling for an hour. I can see myself even walking for several hours. And, my body will be burning more than this because I'm bigger. If you're smaller than 155 pounds, then you're probably going to burn less. And it also depends. I mean, there's types of walking. Just a leisure walk through the neighborhood is not the same as like, I'm going to really push myself to walk around the block 10 times in an hour, something like that. And the phrase burning calories refers to the body using all this energy that we stored. Uh, right now in our bloodstream, we have blood sugar, and that's providing us with our energy. And depending on how long it's been since you've eaten, then you may also have food in your intestine or your stomach that is providing you with a sugar source, and you need to burn that off first. But once your blood sugar gets lower, your body starts burning fat, and your body will take that fat out of your fat stores through your liver and turn it into something called glycogen. And glycogen is kind of like sugar in the blood. And so if you haven't eaten for a while, then your body has already gone through all the sugar that you've eaten, and it's now burning calories in the form of fat. We will be constantly burning calories. You burn calories when you sleep. You burn calories when you're sitting still watching television. You just burn more calories when you're running, jogging, walking, or bicycling. And in fact, I'm going to show you a little bit of that in just a second. So there's a daily amount of calories that you need to to offset how many calories you burn. So that's how much food you should eat in a day. By the way, a calorie with a capital C is 1,000 lowercase calories. And when we're talking about 560 calories, we're actually talking about calories with a capital C. So you can put 1,000 after that if you want to talk about lowercase calories. Okay. But we don't really talk about lowercase calories. We always talk about what's called the kilocalorie, or just the capital C calorie. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how to calculate your daily requirements, or your for your body. We call it your basal metabolic rate, and it's based on a couple of things: how tall are you, how much do you weigh, and how old are you. And it's different calculated for men and women. Um, and you Men get a +5, women get a -161. That's because men tend to use more calories than women. Go figure, right? Um, so you calculate you're out here based on your weight in kilograms, your height in centimeters, your age, and then you add 5 if you're a male, or you -161 if you're a female. Now let's be clear about this. Yes, you need to use kilograms and centimeters, but you can literally Google it. If you weigh 100 pounds, go type into Google 100 pounds to kilograms, and it'll tell you how many kilograms you weigh. If you are 5 feet 6 inches tall, type 5 foot 6 inches, um, or actually turn that into inches. So it would be 66 inches to centimeters, and it'll tell you how many centimeters you are. Okay, and then depending on how active you are, it tells you how many calories you need per day. Okay, and I've actually calculated this out for myself, and I'll show it to you if you promise not to laugh at me. Wait, and then we do that. Okay, um, so here is me. I weigh 240 pounds right now. I weighed 220 pounds a year ago. So yeah, COVID's been rough on me. That actually converts to right around 109 kilograms. And yes, you can round up if you like, or down, whichever you want. So I weigh about 109 kilograms. Okay, so 109 kilograms, but then I multiply that times 10, because that's what it says to do right here, and that gives me 1,090. Then my height, well, I'm 6'1". That's 73 inches. You type that in to Google, 73 inches to centimeters. That's 185 centimeters. I multiply that times 6.25, and I get this funny number, 1156.25. I'm 50 years old. Okay, so I go 5 times my age in years, which is now 250, but I'm going to subtract that. Notice it says to subtract my age. Okay, that's why that's in red. And then finally, for me, I get a +5. If you're a girl right here, you'd put in -161. And I'm add this plus this, subtract this plus this. It just gives me a BMR, or a basal metabolic rate, of 2001.25 kilocalories per day, or essentially 2,000 calories per day if I literally just laid in bed. Because of my body size, I burn 2,000 calories a day just sitting there. Okay. Now, you'll notice here that it says little no exercise, light, moderate, heavy, very heavy. The more energy you use by moving around and doing stuff, the more calories you need. So you take your basal metabolic rate right here, and you multiply it times a set of numbers to tell you how many calories you need a day. Now, for a guy like me, if I just get up and walk around and move around, and just basically do some moving, then I need a little bit more than 2,000 calories a day, and so I multiply 2,000 times 1.2, and it gives me 2,400. And so I can actually get 400 more calories a day just by moving around, right? If I did some light exercise, which sadly I don't, and I should, and I will, okay, but that actually bumps me up another 350 calories. Some moderate exercise, which is just 3 to 5 days a week, just doing some moderate exercise, let's say 30 minutes of light aerobics or something, 3 to 5 days a week, that's going to bump me up to over 3,000 calories per day, by the way. This isn't per week, this is per day. Heavy gets me up to 3,400, and very heavy gets me to 3,800 calories per day. Just the difference between laying in bed versus very heavy exercise, you use almost double the calories. And it's important that you guys understand that. And you may be thinking, wow, 2,000 calories a day. And in fact, what's nice for me is that when you look at the nutrition labels on like a food product, they're based around 2,000 calorie a day consumption. So, um, because I'm bigger than most people, I'd like for you to compare my numbers to yours if you're smaller than me, because I'm bigger than most people, my basal metabolic rate is as much as you would use by actually getting little or even light exercise, maybe even more, I don't know. And so technically I can eat more. Sadly, I do eat more, and then I even eat more than that. So I need to stop eating so much. Let's take a look at some foods and their calories real fast, just to give you an idea of how much you can eat in a day, uh, depending on your energy level. So here are some just some basic things that give you an idea. I just randomly picked this, and this all tends to be bread. Well, this is under bread, biscuits, and cakes. But if you'll notice, a bagel, for example, has 216 calories. Now, if you look over here, I can lay in bed and still eat 10 bagels a day, right, and not gain any weight. Although that just doesn't seem right. But that's not really how my diet on a daily basis goes. When now, by the way, this may be British, so when you say biscuit, they may be thinking like a small cookie, okay? But yeah, because look, they have something called a Cadbury's flake cake. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like a cookie. But like for example, a donut has 140 calories. Okay, a donut has 140 calories. And if you take 2,000 and divide it by 140, that's really, let's just do that real fast. Where's my calculator? All right, we'll pull that up right here. 2,000, let's just say 2,000, divided by 140 gives me, I could actually eat 14 donuts a day, and still not gain weight. And that's just if I lay around and do nothing. But let's be honest, is that all you eat? If I put you in a room, the couch, and a TV and a remote, and then a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts, and that's it, and you can have water, a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts and water, is that going to be enough for you for a 24-hour period? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Um, but moving on down, let's see, like a scone, a loaf, a slice of bread. Weight Watchers bread has a lot less. So here's an interesting thing. Could you make some better decisions? Here is a piece of white bread versus here is a piece of whole wheat bread. You actually get 5 calories less per whole wheat bread, right? So why not eat the whole wheat bread? I know what it tastes like, but could you, on a sandwich, you could save 10 calories, okay? And 10 calories is enough to, oh, I don't know, eat a quarter of a donut? I don't know. But I just want you guys to see that, you know, you can now really kind of look at this. How many calories a day could you consume and still not lose weight? Now, this is a very simple formula once you get to this point. Did you eat more than this? Well, then guess what? You gained weight. Did you eat less than this? Well, you lost weight. How much weight did I gain? Well, how much more did you eat? How much weight did I lose? Well, how much less did you eat? And it should be clear that if you want to lose weight, one of the best things to do is to increase your exercise levels. And by doing that, if you don't increase your food intake, you can lose weight. Now, this is not necessarily the best way to go about it because there are nutritionists who know how to do it better. I have a good friend who is one of those types of people that works out daily, and now the guy eats like crazy, but he watches very closely his nutrient intake, and he knows how much he can eat. Knows what kinds of things he can eat, and it really helps him out. But that's a good start. Is basically watching your calories, and it works and there's like Weight Watchers and stuff. That's what they do is they spend their day, um, you know, counting calories. And there's all kinds of things you can do. But let's take a closer look now at the three types of macronutrients. You got carbohydrates, and we've talked about this before, but let's be clear. Carbohydrates are all glucose, just different kinds of glucose. There are 4 glucose molecules. There's actually 5, but we don't normally eat ribose. Okay, um, and so there's 2 types of glucose, 2 types of fructose. There's galactose that's found in sugar. There is ribose and xylose. We don't normally eat those, but notice that there's one ring, and at one ring, if you remember the monomer and polymer thing, this is one monomer. Okay, that one ring is a monomer, and so glucose, fructose, galactose, Ribose and xylose, they're all monomers, okay? And your body likes monomers better because it doesn't have to break them apart. Look here at this dimer called sucrose. Di means two, or actually it means pair. And so I've taken two um, monomers and stuck them together to get sucrose. It's actually a glucose and a fructose stuck together to gives me sucrose. That's table sugar. But before my body can get to the energy in any one of these right here, like it could here if it's already separated, but because they're together, my body first has to break it. And it takes just a little bit longer, and it takes a little bit of energy to do this, which means I get a less energy out of these two if they're together than if they were separate. By the way, notice that lactose is two glucoses bonded together. Maltose is two different types of glucoses bonded together. But sucrose, lactose, maltose, these are all, actually this is a galactose, I'm sorry. These are all kinds of sugars. We eat malt. You just don't know it, but it's in there. Look for maltodextrin on the side of something you eat. Lactose comes out of milk. But all of these are forms of energy, the carbohydrates. Now they get much bigger than this. Now imagine putting like 1,000 or a million of these together. You would get something like a starch or a cellulose. Okay. All right. The simple carbohydrates are the sweets. They are the donuts, the cakes, cookies, pies, and donuts. That's because they're called simple because they're not stuck together. See how these across the top aren't stuck together? We eat those and we like those. They taste good. And actually, to be honest with you, the sucrose is a simple sugar too, even though we have to break it apart a little bit, but not a bunch. Okay. And so, whenever we eat cakes, cookies, pies, and donuts, we're getting simple sugars. Our body likes it because we can get a lot of energy real fast. So our brain has been trained. It's actually genetically predisposed to enjoy sugar. That's why mother's milk has lactose in it, because the baby will taste the sugar that's in the milk and go, "Oh, this is good. Let's eat this." Um, and so as a result, our body craves this, and we can actually get addicted to this. And it's found in everything. It's not only is it found in cakes, cookies, pies, and donuts. It's also found in tomato sauce, ketchup, you name it. You can find high fructose corn syrup in everything. Okay, you'd be amazed at how much high fructose corn syrup there is in a can of Coke. One can of Coke has the equivalent of 12 teaspoons of sugar in it. You want to get sick? Go in the kitchen and eat 12 teaspoons of sugar. It'll make you sick. And yet you pound down 2 or 3 Cokes in a day. My God, that's a lot of sugar. That's one of the first things I had to do when I tried to maintain my weight, is watch my sweet drinks. Sweet drinks and sweet drinks are full of sugar. Now, if you are an athlete and you find yourself doing this idea of this heavy daily exercise, then yeah, eat that sugar. That's okay, because your body's gonna burn it fast. But if you're just a couch potato like me, you really need to be careful how much of this sugar you take in, because your body just almost instantly turns it into fat. The complex sugars can be found in fruits, and they're not as complex, but they're more complex than this. But you have to be thinking, should I be eating simple carbohydrates or complex? And the complex carbohydrates are the ones that are better for you. You're going to find them in your fruits and your vegetables and your whole grains, okay? And so as you sit down to eat, consider eating whole grain bread, fruits, and vegetables, as opposed to the simple sugars, like just white bread and, like candy and stuff. Also, fiber is it's an indigestible carbohydrate, and it's found in lots of plants. Now, you may be saying, wait a minute, why am I eating fiber if it's indigestible? Well, you can't digest it to get the energy out of it, but what you can do with fiber, like cellulose, is it kind of acts like a broom. As it moves through your digestive tract, it kind of helps sweep out things. And the long and the short of it is, and I'm a science teacher, so I can say this, it helps you poop more. And trust me, you need to poop more, okay? Most people are borderline constipated. All right, yeah, did you think you're going to hear that today? The next macronutrient is called protein. Proteins are long chains of amino acids bonded together. Now, we've already talked about this, so we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but the thing about proteins is there are 20 amino acids, and your body can make 11 of them. And that's really awesome, but you need all 20, which means there are 9 amino acids that your body can't make, and you absolutely have to get them from your diet. Now, here in the United States and a lot of other countries, and we're trying to make this worldwide, we fortify our foods with amino acids, so you can find foods that don't normally have these amino acids in it. We stick them in there. Breakfast cereal is one. But you eat these amino acids in your diet. Hopefully, you get them enough, and it helps you to make all the proteins you need for your body to build itself with and to maintain itself with. Proteins are really important in your diet, but if you don't get the right proteins, or better yet, if you don't get the right amino acids, get um, you can have a problem. See this LYS right here? I'm sure you guys have all seen Jurassic Park. If you remember in the first Jurassic Park, they talked about how they kept the dinosaurs in check. They bred the dinosaurs to where they didn't make lysine, and they didn't think there was any lysine on the island, and so they would give them food that had lysine in it, and they knew that if they didn't give them the food, or they thought that if they didn't give them the food, then it wouldn't take long before all the dinosaurs died. But oddly enough, the dinosaurs found a source of lysine on the island, and as a result, they didn't need the humans anymore. And then the rest was a bunch of screaming and whatever. So anyway, proteins are crucial. Now there's two kinds of proteins. There's the complete protein and the incomplete proteins. Incomplete proteins, there's nothing wrong with them. Okay, you can eat incomplete proteins, but they just don't give you all of the amino acids. So if you are on a plant-based diet, like if you're a vegetarian, you have to be very careful because you can't get a complete protein out of eating just plants. Um, However, there are combinations of incomplete proteins, such as rice and beans, that makes a complete protein. And in fact, the Hispanic cultures, the older Aztec, oh gosh, what Incan, Aztec, Mayan, these cultures had developed this perfect protein of rice and beans, and it's been around for a very long time. And it does give your body, this is a plant-based protein from two different plants that gives your body all the protein, all the amino acids that it needs. Now, I would like to point out that complete proteins are found in meats. Meats give you every amino acid. They're like a vitamin pill. And yes, there are bad things that come with the meat, such as the fat and a couple of other things. But if you can eat it in moderation or be smart about what you eat more fish and chicken instead of beef. And I say that as a beef rancher. But if you can eat more of the fish and the chicken, then you're getting better protein for you. And also you can get your complete protein. And by the way, we do have two plants that are complete proteins. By eating these two complete proteins, you do get all of your amino acids. It is possible to be a vegetarian and get all these complete proteins. It's difficult. If you're going to be a strict vegetarian, you have to be very careful to consume these sources of these amino acids. Whereas if you're a meat eater, you don't necessarily have to worry about all that much, right? But soy and quinoa are two complete proteins, and they're very good for you. And I enjoy both. But I enjoy eating lots of vegetables, but I do enjoy eating meat. And sadly, my favorite thing to eat is beef. And I eat too much of it. Now, I say sadly only because I eat too much of it. Beef itself is actually very healthy for you. You can eat beef and be healthy. It's just eating too much beef or pork or other types of these red meats tends to build up in your body too much fats and too much cholesterols and other stuff. Plus, they're hard to push through and digest, which is why you need to eat your vegetables. If you eat lots of vegetables and you eat beef, it's going to be better for you because, yeah, your body can, push them through. Remember, vegetables have fiber, and fiber is a broom. Okay. Um, Moving on to fats, we need fats in our diet. Well, I'm fat. Yeah, I know, but you still need fats. But you need to be careful about what fats you get. Fats from healthy sources include things like the fats from nuts, the fats from certain vegetables like avocado fats are really good for you. And I love avocado. Fish has certain things in it called omegas, and these omega 6 and omega 3s, they play very important roles in tissue functions, and we don't get them in much else. So you really should eat a little bit of fish every so often. There's all kinds of vegetable oils that you can eat, and some vegetables are good for you, some not so good for you, so be careful about the vegetable oils. Corn oil is it's not so good for you. You should do more like olive oil and stuff. But um, now, fats are not soluble in water, and this is important because there are now things that can be dissolved in water and things that can't. And these fats are not soluble in water, but in a minute we're going to be talking about vitamins, some of which can be dissolved in water and some which have to be dissolved in fats. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. Now, not although there are some fats that are good for you and some that aren't, too much of any of these fats is not good for you. But if you you can eat more of some fats than others and without having trouble. Now, there are these things called saturated fats. Saturated fats mean that every bond that can be made is made with a hydrogen. So they're saturated with hydrogen atoms. And as a result, um, that creates a structure that is a little bit, uh, I don't know, different. And if you eat a lot of saturated fats, you get a lot of LDLs, which is low density lipoproteins. And these are the ones that like to stick to the walls of your arteries, right? So these ones that stick to the walls of your arteries start to build up on your arteries, and they restrict the flow of blood through your arteries. And as a result, at some point, there might be a total stoppage of a flow of blood, and that's a bad, bad thing. That's how we get heart attacks and strokes, which, by the way, is the leading cause of death in the U.S., is this very thing. We literally eat ourselves to death here in the United States. So by eating too much of these saturated fats and not exercising and smoking or drinking and things like that, you're increasing your risk of heart attacks and strokes immensely. Okay, so be careful. Yeah, eat meat, eat cheese and butter, but eat less of it. Eat more vegetables. Eat more foods that have unsaturated fats. Um, Watch the cookies, and let me tell you about cookies, because here comes the cookies right here. When we've invented this thing. Well, hold on. We'll talk about unsaturated fats first. You can get the unsaturated fats, which means that um, they don't have as much hydrogen in them as they could. They've got some bonds made other ways. Long story short, unsaturated fats are not saturated with hydrogen, which means they're a little bit better for you. You get these from the nuts and the vegetable oils and the certain foods like the fish. You can eat more of this than you can the saturated fats. Now, I've been eating saturated fats my whole life, and a lot of this just comes down to genetics. My family does not die of heart attacks, but yours might. It just depends. But if your family is prone to dying from heart attacks young, or if your family has heart disease or strokes, you need to be really careful about what you consume. If your family, and I'm talking about your genetic family, if your genetic family doesn't necessarily die from heart attacks and strokes, then you can be a little bit more crazy about eating the saturated fats. But I still would make it um, a little less of my diet than you would think, because it's going to make you feel better. You're going to live a better life. You're going to be slimmer and trimmer and look better and feel better. And that's something I got to get back to. Now, we invented this thing called a trans fat. There are trans fats found naturally in foods, but we make a lot of trans fats. And back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, oh man, everything was trans fats, because we thought, wow, this is easy to make. It's inexpensive fats that we can give to people, and people seem to like them. But as it turns out, trans fats behave a lot like saturated fats, and so we have to watch our trans fats now with this partially hydrogenated oil. By hydrogenating an oil, you take an unsaturated fat and turn it into a saturated fat, and it's found everywhere. And if you're not careful, you can eat a lot of trans fats. In fact, this is what they're focusing on now as being the biggest problem, are the trans fats. So watch for trans fats. You can cook things like, you can fry vegetables and French fries and breads, and you can make all these things in fats that aren't trans fats if you're just careful. Sadly, they're a little more expensive, but it's better for you. Now then, the big one. Everybody's thinking, wait a minute, you said fats, but what about cholesterol? And cholesterol is a problem. Cholesterol is a limit manufactured in animal cells. Okay, animals make cholesterols. You can find a little bit of cholesterol in plants, but when you eat a plant diet, you ain't eating much cholesterol. Now here's the thing. We're an animal, so we make cholesterol. You need cholesterol. Cholesterol is crucial to the functioning of your body. The problem is you don't eat anywhere near as much cholesterol as you get. And so when we eat a lot of foods that are based around plant protein or animal proteins, there's going to be a higher amount of cholesterol in our body. And at my age, I'm 50 years old. At my age, I really try to keep an eye on my cholesterol, and it's recently, and I'm going to blame COVID, but it's recently gotten above. I used to be below 200, which was considered, and this is a measure of how much cholesterol is found per a volume of blood. And so I used to have below 200 cholesterol molecules in a certain amount of blood. And I was like, yeah, my cholesterol's good. But now it started to creep up. Now it's nothing even anywhere near bad, but I need to keep an eye on it because I am getting older. My body's going to be unable to deal with it as well. And so as I get older, I'm going to be able to eat less and less cholesterol. Now this cholesterol, and you guys are going to watch this video and then do this assignment. But cholesterol is not the worst thing, right? They're now thinking that these trans fats and these saturated fats are the worst thing than cholesterol. But cholesterol aids in the buildup of those proteins, of those lipids, as they are on the wall of your cells, of your blood vessels. Where's that picture at? Hold on, let me just show you there. Come on, slow computer. Um, where did it go? Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause it until I find it. Found it. This buildup is actually of the low density lipids, not cholesterol. But you see, the cholesterol is in there. And as that cholesterol builds up, it helps the low density lipids to stick to it. Okay? So that's why we watch our cholesterol. Okay, there's an assignment. You have to watch this video, and it talks about how to read those labels, and I'm not going to show it to you. And then there's an assignment here in which you read those labels. By the way, if you'll notice, it says at the bottom, based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. So whenever it gives you these percentages, these are based on 2,000 calories a day. For you guys, you scrawny little people, that's after you've had a little bit of exercise to get up to 2,000 calories a day. For me, this is how many calories a day I burn just sitting here. So I can actually get a little bit more. Like if this 15 grams represents 21% of a normal person, it actually only represents about 18 to 17%. So I can eat a little bit more. That's just because I'm big, right? And it still doesn't mean that I don't have to exercise. I need to exercise because, I'm getting fat. All right, let's talk about micronutrients. Micronutrients are things like your vitamins, okay? You need these smaller nutrients in smaller amounts. Now keep in mind that they are um, microscopically sized smaller. They're smaller structures than your carbohydrates, your lipids, your proteins. But you don't need as much. So these are smaller in many ways. We don't need as much, and they're smaller, but we need them. So let's just take a look. They're still made out of things like carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. They're just different shapes, okay? But you need all kinds. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Your B vitamins are ones that you find in your meats. They're crucial. They are water soluble, so they can be found in all kinds of things, but we can't store these. Any of the water soluble vitamins we don't store, so we need them on a daily basis. They need to be found in our foods daily. But they come a lot from animal products and things like mushrooms, and certain grains and nuts have them. This is one of the things that people, if they're on a plant-based diet, this is the one that needs to have a little bit of B put into it. You got to be careful of your B's, but you can take a vitamin pill if you like and get all of that. Vitamin C is found primarily in plant products, and this is something that people who don't eat enough vegetables find themselves low in. And actually, if you get a low enough deficiency, you can get something called scurvy, which wasn't around really much in the last couple of years, the last couple of decades, once we figured out what causes it. And that's the whole story with the sailors sailing back and forth. They wouldn't carry with them vegetables, and so they didn't get their vitamin C, and they got this. They were weak, they were fatigued, they had skin rashes, bleeding gums, their wounds wouldn't heal. I mean, my God, all that just because from you don't get vitamin C. Vitamin C is crucial, so they started carrying with them fresh fruits and vegetables to help avoid getting scurvy. But today we're actually starting to see scurvy come back because people your age have the worst diet ever. You simply refuse to eat vegetables, and then add on top of that, older people start to smoke. Smoking actually causes damage that vitamin C can reverse, and so if you smoke, you need to eat more vitamin C. But that's not really an excuse. If you smoke and then take vitamin C, they don't equal out. It's still bad. Smoking's bad, but if you smoke, you better take a lot of vitamin C, more than normal. All right. Moving on, we got the fat soluble vitamins. Now these are ones that can be dissolved into fat, so you can often find them in fats like cheeses and butter and things like that. Vitamin A and vitamin D. Now vitamin D is crucial to bone structure and a bunch of other things. And when you go outside in the sun, you can actually get vitamin D. Your skin will make it. That doesn't give you an excuse to be out in the sun, but you can make vitamin D, and we see a lot of vitamin D deficiencies because there's a lot of young people who spend days and days and days indoors without going outside, and so they're low on vitamin D. Um, Vitamin A is another thing that you get by eating these food sources here. Excuse me. If you don't get enough A in your diet, you can go blind. It has an effect on bone growth, tooth development. The thing about these fat soluble vitamins is that they can be stored in our body. They can be stored in our fats, and so uh, we don't need them on a daily basis as much. Although you may as well go ahead and get them. Um, and in fact, in some cases, if you take too much of these things, it's actually toxic. So again, you have to be careful how much you take. Moving on to vitamin E, that's found in a lot of your nut sources and also in your green leafy vegetables. It helps to make red blood cells. It plays a crucial role in immunity. And then, of course, vitamin K, same kind of a thing. It helps in calcium binding and all this other stuff. And if you don't get these things daily or in your diet, or you don't take a supplement, I do both. I try to eat a good balanced diet and eat, take a supplement. But if you don't, man, I mean, you might be surprised at how you're short on just one vitamin. In fact, they're finding that vitamin D is a huge deficiency lately. That if we don't get enough vitamin D from good sources, not from like milk. Milk is a good source, but you should get it really from your green vegetables. And if you don't get enough vitamin D, it's creating real issues with our brain development and our energy levels. It's crazy how these little things affect us. Hold on, I skipped some. All right, then there's the minerals. Now the minerals are actually not built out necessarily of carbon, hydrogens, and oxygens, but they're things that come in foods that we need to consume. Iron is one of them. Iron is a trace mineral. Well, it's not a trace; it's found everywhere, But if you don't eat enough iron, you have problems with specifically things like your blood, and so that's why people that have low iron are anemic, and people that are anemic they have low blood iron and they have um, a really they're fatigued all the time. Women with your menstruation can face this problem a lot. So you need to be careful of your iron intake. Now, oddly enough, we can get iron from all kinds of things, from lots of vegetable sources, eggs, certain meats. Um, I heard that you can get iron from eating out of a cast iron pan when you cook in cast iron. I don't know, but I cook in cast iron, so we'll see. But the point is make sure that you're getting enough iron in your diet. Calcium comes from all sorts of places. It can come from uh, milk, but it can also come from lots of green leafy vegetables, such as kale, such as spinach, that sort of thing. If you get a low calcium count, you've got real problems with bone density. You've got a couple of other problems. Calcium is an important thing in nerve induction. But long before you have nerve induction problems, you can have bone problems. And if you don't get enough calcium, you can have problems with bone density. So you need to be making sure that you get enough calcium. Interesting, sodium and potassium is not something we have a problem getting too little of, although it used to be. Salt, table salt right here. The word salary comes from SAL, salt, because Roman soldiers used to get paid part of their wage in salt because it was so rare for back in that day that they would get paid in salt. Today we hand out packets by the fistfuls. Everything has lots of salt in it. This is sadly one of the things you get too much of. And so you need to be careful how much sodium and potassium you take in. Now you need it. And if you sweat a lot because you're working out and things like that, then good for you. Your sodium is probably not too high. But you got to be careful of it. And it's a difficult thing. Phosphorus and zinc are really trace elements, but we need them. And you can find them in all sorts of foods, seafood for zinc. But if you take a supplement or you just eat a decent, well-balanced meal, you probably get enough phosphorus and zinc. Um, and so there is a lot of stuff you need to think about in terms of your diet. And I am glad we've gone through this, and I feel like I've gone longer than I intended to, so I'm going to stop now. Please get to work.